Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone. I'm Maria Roll with Legislative Council. This is the first meeting of this biennium of the Joint Information Technology Oversight Committee. As you know, the chair position and vice chair changes biennially. Senator Brock was the chair. This biennium, a House member will serve as the chair. So the very first order of business, so you have a presiding officer, is to elect a chair. So at this time, I will take nominations. You don't need a second for the nomination. You can speak to the nomination, and then once the nominations are made, we will vote in the order that the nominations are made. Are there any questions? And yes, there is one.
There is a nomination.
There is a nomination. Okay.
I'd like to nominate Representative Chase.
Okay.
I would like to nominate Representative Priestley.
Any other nominations? Anybody like to speak to nominations, or would you like to proceed to a vote?
After the senator, I would like to.
I nominated Representative Chase for no other reason because of his experience and his understanding of what we do in this committee. He has been a member of the committee for several years at this point. This would be your third year, the third biennium as a member of the committee, and he served as vice chair in the last biennium. And as a result, he has both the experience, perspective, the learning, and the understanding of what we do at all levels of JITOC. And I think he has a forward-looking view of what needs to be done in terms of the future, which I think is very, very important. And for that reason, I think he would be an excellent choice to continue in leadership of the committee.
So I have nominated Representative Priestley. She has extensive experience in the IT field. She is new to the body, but she is not new to community support, community development, or community organization or leadership roles within the state of Vermont. She has her own business in Bradford and works managing software and IT projects for a company that services colleges out of the state of Vermont. I have worked with her on the Rural Caucus and found her to be someone who is diligent, keeps us on a schedule, and follows through. I have a few concerns about Representative Chase actually being the chair of this committee. I think we have a policy consideration to think about in that regard. While I have served with Representative Chase for many years and find him to be an upstanding citizen and representative for his district, he also works for Consolidated. And Consolidated is a telecommunications company. And this committee, while it does not have the ability to take many actions unless they are empowered to do so by the legislature, it does have the ability to comment on telecommunications broadly. And I think it is inappropriate to have industry leading this committee, even more so given the recent announcement that Consolidated is to be acquired by an equity firm, and Consolidated will be going through a public process to acquire a CPG this year. I'm also disappointed that our colleagues asked us to specifically do some very important work around some significant investments in IT this year, looking at the IT Modernization Fund and a number of very important IT projects that have not been working well for Vermonters. And I'm disappointed that the leadership of this committee did not get this committee scheduled prior to the flooding, even last year. I think it's unfortunate. And so for those reasons, I think while I appreciate the service of our current leadership, I would like us to look to new leadership, fresh leadership, and someone who we know will move things along.
Any further discussion at this time? And
Question, point of order.
yes.
So I didn't know that we were going to have a contested chair. So this is somewhat of a surprise to me. I'm in my usual process serving on these bodies. We'd hear from the nominated candidates. So I appreciate that Senator Brock and Representative Sevelia just spoke, but I'd really love to know where Representative Priestley as well as Representative Chase currently stand on this. Are we going to hear from them as well?
Certainly. If they would like to speak, they are invited to at this time.
Do an order of nomination.
I appreciate your concerns. I am not in a position of leadership or equity with Consolidated. My current position is supporting customers mostly in the Midwest and out in California, building site-to-site networks. I am not management. I am not in a shareholding position. I'm certainly not in an executive role in the company. And actually, I've had a bit of a demotion since I've been elected from the company. So I enjoy my work, but I wouldn't say I'm beholden to them. I've spent a lot of time studying IT and technology and networking in general. I have no doubt that Rep. Priestley has as well. And I would appreciate the opportunity to be chair for the committee.
Yeah, thank you. So although I'm new to this committee, I'm definitely not new to board governance and board leadership, having served as the chair of Green Mountain Economic Development Corp, Vital Communities, which were 20-person boards, 25-person boards. And so in that respect, and definitely take conflicts of interest very seriously. So every board, so I was on half a dozen boards when I joined the legislature and dropped off every one of those. The only conflict of interest that I could even see on this is that I served I was the impetus of our town joining the EC Fiber as a member. I joined off that. I dropped off of that. And then my partner serving off on that. And as soon, if I was to become leadership, he would instantly drop off of that. So I take those things very seriously. Also, my background is 23 years at this point, starting in network administration, database, basically structure, planning, design, scripting, management, and then going into customer service. I worked for a software company in Seattle that, as Rep. Sevelia mentioned, works with major universities and colleges systems, statewide college systems all over the country, except for Vermont. Within those roles, a big part of the last 13 years for them has been implementation of our software. So it's going through business roles, which is something that, seeing the reports that we've been going through, is something that is lacking in some cases, according to the auditor's report. So those things are things that I think I bring to this committee, and very much would like to make sure that we are having due diligence and being responsive to the needs of technology, which is constantly changing, and making sure we're proactive for citizens of Vermont. Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, and without objection, then I will take a voice vote on the nominations. And again, we'll begin in the order that they were made. So all of those in favor of electing Representative Chase as the chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Maybe by show of hands, so that I'm clear. 4. Okay.
This door open for a little more generation while we take care of some voters here.
And now we will vote on the second nomination. All those in favor of electing Representative Priestley as the chair, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
So it looks like Representative Chase has received the majority of the votes, and he is now your chair. At this time, would you like to elect from among yourselves a vice chair?
I move that we elect Senator Chittenden as vice chair.
So is it, may I speak?
Yes. Well, actually, Representative Chase, take it over.
Senator, go ahead.
Wasn't expecting that either. Thank you, Representative Sibilia. Unless it's required that a senator be the vice, I would just as happily withdraw the vice consideration and instead put forward Representative Priestley as the vice chair. I think that might be a great way to address some of the topics that were just raised. So is it required that a senator be the vice when the representative is the chair?
Yeah, so good question. I'm just looking at the charge, and in the statute, it simply says that the chair rotates biennially between the House and Senate. It is silent on the vice chair, so I don't think that that is prohibited.
Then, given that, Mr. Chair, I would like to withdraw my nomination, and I would like to nominate Representative Priestley as vice chair.
I'll second that if that means anything.
Well, I'm a little bit surprised, but I thought we had to change. So I was going to nominate Senator Brock. And I think I'd still like to. So that leaves us with two. Would Rep. Priestley and the senator like to speak, or is there any other nominations first? Seeing none, Rep. Priestley, would you like to?
She just.
I would add one thing. Sure, if invited. So I recently also was appointed to the National Conference on State Legislators, and from the task force that gathers all the different state legislators in the country to talk about cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and data privacy. So that gives me a direct connection to not only other legislators, so I've been comparing notes with, which is super helpful, but also industry software that we might be talking to, as well as CIOs and CTOs from other states.
Thank you. Senator?
Well, I've served on this committee since its inception and would very much like to continue in the vice chair role, for no other reason, because I think it's important that we have a balance in leadership that reflects both chambers throughout. And thus far, traditionally, we have had that split. I've had a long experience in overseeing IT projects, and I'm particularly overseeing information security issues, both in the private sector, in a large corporation, and then also here in the General Assembly. And indeed, just this past 2 weeks ago, I just came back from an NCSL leadership conference in wireless down in Atlanta, and I think that role, which I've been heavily involved in for quite a while, will be valuable here. And I think, again, maintaining the history of what we've done here and the issues and understanding the issues that face us. And admittedly, some of them we certainly do want to get on and certainly do want to move forward. But at the same time, we recognize that ours is an oversight committee. It is not a committee of jurisdiction. Thank you.
And are there any other nominations? Seeing none, let's do the vote in the order that they were nominated. So those in voting for Rep. Priestley for vice chair, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Counting three. And those in favor of Senator Brock.
Aye.
Aye.
So I just want to move this forward, and I think we can get functional. If we can do a second vote, I'd be happy to vote for Senator Brock. I don't know how we move forward with a split tie, but I would support Senator Brock in a second round of voting too.
Maria.
You can do a second round of voting. Since there is a tie, you can have further discussion and then revote in case anybody wants to change their vote one way or the other.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the topic?
I would just note that it is the House's turn to chair this committee. The majority of House members chose a different chair and are recommending a vice chair and I would ask the senators to consider that.
Any further? For a second vote, those in favor of Rep. Priestley, please say aye and or raise your hand.
Aye.
And those in favor of Senator Brock? Aye. Senator Brock, welcome to Vice Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward again to continuing, but I do think that Representative Priestley brings a great deal to the table, and I want to certainly make sure that she is involved and is able to add her knowledge and experience and contributions as we move forward.
Great. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to Maria for the remaining items on the agenda, please.
Okay, great. So first thing we're going to do is just review the charge of the committee. It is posted online under my name. I do have some extra hard copies if anybody wants them. Mike is kind enough to share a screen and pull up the charge as well. And so recognizing that there are some new members, thought it might be helpful to just review what your charge is, some of the key players, and then review some of the reports that you're going to be receiving as you hear from additional witnesses later this morning and afternoon. So the Joint Information Technology Oversight Committee was established in 2018. As you can see in subsection A, its purpose is to oversee investments in and use of information technology in Vermont and to provide periodic advice on legislative IT issues. You're familiar with the membership, so I'm going to skip down to subsection C, the powers and duties. Subdivision 1, the committee shall oversee, evaluate, and make recommendations on the following: the state's current deployment, management, and oversight of IT in the furtherance of state governmental activities, including data processing systems, telecom networks, and related technologies, particularly with regard to issues of compatibility among existing and proposed technologies. In addition, you shall oversee, evaluate, and make recommendations on issues related to the storage of, maintenance of, access to, privacy of, and restrictions on the use of computerized records. Also, issues of public policy related to the development and promotion of the private, commercial, and nonprofit information infrastructure in the state, its relationship to the state government IT information infrastructure, and its integration with national and international information networks. And finally, cybersecurity. The committee may provide advice to the Director of Legislative Information Technology and the Joint Legislative Management Committee as appropriate regarding matters related to legislative information technology. You have the assistance, administrative, technical, and legal assistance of the Office of Legislative Counsel, the Office of Legislative Operations, and the Joint Fiscal Office. And since I'm going to, and we talked about the, we'll just review again in terms of the meetings. Obviously, the committee elects chair and vice chair from among the members. You can adopt rules of procedure. I don't think this committee has actually ever adopted rules of procedure, so there are rules, joint rules, House Senate rules that would apply in the absence of specific rules. And we talked about the rotation of the chair. A majority of the membership shall constitute a quorum. The committee may meet when the General Assembly is not in session or at the call of the chair. And then there's the reimbursement provision. So having reviewed that, I'm just going to very briefly talk about some of the key players in the state related to IT and telecommunications. You'll be hearing from many of them today. First, I just wanted to start, the Joint Fiscal Office has hired an IT consultant, Lisa Galvin, who is here today. So she'll be working with you and overseeing and working on some of the reports and projects that are ongoing now. So I also wanted to say that, as most of you or some of you know, Rebecca Wasserman from Legislative Council used to handle all of the IT stuff. She is no longer with the office as of a month or two ago. So this is all very new to me. So I'm going to do the best that I can. We do have a couple of new attorneys actually starting next week. They'll get up to speed. I will work with them as best I can, but I just wanted to put that out there. So don't have tremendous depth in the subject. So in terms of IT projects, you'll be hearing from the Chief Information Officer for the Judiciary, so the different branches of government. That's Marcia Shells. You'll be hearing from Kevin Moore, as you know, who's the Legislative Director of Information Technology. And for the Executive Branch, the Secretary of Digital Services, Denise Riley Hughes. Then in terms of kind of broadband telecommunications regularly, more generally, from a regulatory perspective, you'll also be hearing from, or you normally might hear from, the Commissioner of Public Service, June Tierney, who's not available today, but you'll hear from the Director of Telecommunications and Connectivity, Hunter Thompson, who is here and will be talking with you today. And then also the Vermont Community Broadband Board, the Executive Director is Christine Hallquist, and she will be presenting to you today as well to get you some updated information on the work that they've been doing. The other entity that you're not going to hear from today, but just for kind of situational awareness, as you know, the legislature created the Public Safety Communications Task Force last session. The purpose is to design a public safety communications system. So this is a system that integrates 911 calling with dispatch and oversight at the state level. So this task force has met, I think, about 20 times since we created them. It's co-chaired by the Commissioner of Public Safety, Jennifer Morrison, and the Executive Director of 911, Barb Neal. So they are doing a lot of work related to technology and coverage. I'm just mentioning it out there as another entity that you may hear from or want to hear from going forward. And then finally, obviously, the state auditor has reviewed some of the projects, some of the planning that has been done, and you are going to be hearing not from Doug Hoffer, but Deputy State Auditor Tim Ash today. So that's an overview of key players. Mike, if you don't mind pulling up the second document that I prepared, which looks like this. Great. Okay, so this is just a very kind of quick overview of some of the ongoing projects and work that's being done, as well as related reporting requirements, again, so that you can kind of be aware of what's available for you to review if you'd like. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the network. Yes.
Can we note that these documents, I believe, are available on the website? Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so for those of you who are here and can't read what's on the screen, if you do have your computers, the documents are on the website of the committee.
I printed out some hard copies because I know some people prefer to work from a hard copy. So if you'd like, you can have those. So the first project I'm going to discuss is the Network and Security Infrastructure Modernization Project. This is overseen by the Agency of Digital Services. Agency of Digital Service. The purpose is to replace legacy infrastructure, hardware, software, and platforms underlying the network and security architecture of the state. There was last session a $10 million appropriation from the Technology Modernization Special Fund, which I'm going to be talking about in the next line item here. And that money is to be used for the planning, design, and replacement costs of this project. The agency selects the vendor through a competitive bid process. Any project with a total cost of $1 million or greater is subject to an expert independent review. The agency may purchase or lease equipment through a separate competitive bid process. And then once the vendor has been selected and the independent review is completed, the agency shall issue a verbal or written report to this committee. So there isn't a specific time, deadline, date. It's when those things have been completed, the selection of the vendor and the review.
For the record, my name is Lisa Govan. I'm the JFO IT consultant. I will be reviewing the independent review and doing the formal review in the format that the committee is used to and presenting it to the committee to advise them on the decision on whether or not to release funds for the project.
Great. And actually, Lisa, would you like to come up and join, if that's okay, with the chair? Because I'm sure she does have a lot more familiarity with some of the work that's been done in the project.
Well, if you have questions about status.
Yeah, great. And yes, you'll be hearing directly from the secretaries, officers as appropriate. So then the next item I wanted to talk about was the Technology Modernization Special Fund. This is a fund that was created in 2022. It's administered by the Agency of Digital Services. The purpose is to provide money to purchase, implement, and upgrade technology platforms, systems, and cybersecurity services used by state agencies and departments to carry out their statutory functions. In fiscal year 23, so a couple years ago, you appropriated about $40 million to the agency or to this fund to be used for specific authorized expenditures. You then amended that language a little bit this past session. So what you see reflected here, beginning with the 11.8 million purposes, $960,000 for the fire safety system modernization to replace the current technology with a modern platform to improve records management and public interaction functionalities related to permitting and licensing. $2.2 million for a case management system at the Attorney General's office. $20 million for the Department of Motor Vehicle Core System Modernization Phase 2. And $3 million for the Department of Labor Unemployment Insurance Modernization Project, which I will speak to in greater detail in the next line item. But specifically, with respect to this committee's oversight, all of these expenditures are only released following approval of this committee upon a review of the following documentation provided by the Agency of Digital Services, the Agency of Administration, and the JFO IT consultant. And those things are the adequacy of departmental readiness, the responsiveness of the RFPs, and the results of the independent review. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe any of those, there have been no approvals.
There haven't, we're still waiting for the independent review for the unemployment insurance system, which I think is pending. And the ERP system has a ways to go before they'll be doing the independent review.
Yeah, so this is one of two things that we are actually asked to do. And so I'm wondering, I'm just reviewing the agenda and I'm seeing that we have 30 minutes, which are almost up for elections, and to hear from Lisa. Is there someplace else in the agenda where we'll be hearing about what's happening with these projects and the very significant investment that we've made in them and our charge?
We're hearing from ADS. We will have an update.
And is AOA also here?
I do not believe so.
And do we have any representatives from any of these agencies?
No.
Thank you.
So then, yep,
So, Mr. Chair, let me just add that this is the first meeting which is an overview of the issues to be dealt with during this biennium. I believe a doodle poll has gone out for the second meeting. The second meeting will go into greater depth in terms of some of the specifics I think the representative is concerned about.
Well, I thank you very much, Senator. As you know, I am distressed at the lateness of this meeting.
I understand that.
And I think it's a pretty serious obligation we have in terms of oversight and financial resources. And I hope that actually we are going to be seeing significant work and these dates selected quickly for those of us that have other jobs so that we can do that oversight prior to starting the next session.
Let me just add that one of the issues about having meetings, you have to have a committee appointed to have a meeting. And the appointments of the committee were not done at the first of the year. And indeed, into late July, the names of even the people who were on the committee had not been provided to us by legislative leadership. And it is impossible to hold a committee meeting for people who are no longer in the legislature.
Senator, that's 4 months ago. So thank you.
I promise. Are we expected to be making motions on release of funds today, or that's going to come like the next 6? Okay.
That'd be
Awesome.
okay. So that brings us more specifically to the Unemployment Insurance Modernization Project, which commenced in 2021. The General Assembly in 2022 appropriated $27 million from the Technology Modernization Special Fund for this project. And that money is to be released as follows. $10 million on July 1st of this year upon approval of this committee of the actions outlined in a project schedule.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to confirm that that has not happened. Is that right?
Correct. There has not been a meeting. This is the first meeting of the biennium. Then all remaining funds are released upon request as needed by the Agency of Digital Services and approval of this committee in accordance with actions outlined in a project schedule. I went back and just looked at some of the information presented to committees of jurisdiction last session. I believe, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, the independent review started in February of this year. A vendor was selected in March of this year, and implementation was scheduled to commence July 1st. So we'll just get confirmation that in fact that's all happened.
For UI, the vendor selected, well, the independent review does happen, but first they identify internally the vendor. The independent review right now is at the stage where they're presenting it to the state CIO, and she is, I think, asking follow-up questions, so it's close.
Thanks. And then the next project is the Judiciary Network Replacement Project, for which about $4.6 million was appropriated this past session. And you'll be hearing from the judiciary today. We'll give an update on the status of that project, which they're required to do, and that's something actually this committee should receive and hear about. In terms of other state IT projects and reports, not necessarily specific to this committee, but things maybe to be aware of. There is an automated decision system kind of project or area that's studied by ADS. The agency is required to inventory all automated decision systems being developed, employed, or procured by state government. They update that inventory annually as part of the annual report and budget request that's submitted during the budget process. There's also an AI advisory council that will submit a report this January on a clear use and data management policy for state government and protocols regarding automated decision systems. And if you want to know what an automated decision system is, I did include that in footnote 8. Didn't know what it was specifically. But again, I just want you to kind of be aware of what's in the context. Then in terms of artificial intelligence systems, within the Agency of Digital Services, there is a division of artificial intelligence. It reviews all aspects of AI systems developed, employed, or procured in state government. They file an annual report to the standing committees of jurisdiction and receive advice from the AI Advisory Council. As I mentioned, the agency does an annual report on IT and cybersecurity as part of a legislative process. And there are two other systems I just wanted to manage. The shared school district data management system. I'm on page 4. So all Vermont supervisory unions, supervisory districts, school districts, and independent technical center districts must use the same system selected by the Agency of Education. That's supposed to be the adoption deadline for that system was extended to December 31st of next year. There was a pause in the implementation of this project. There are quarterly reports filed, which you can review, and status reports that go to the General Assembly, including there was a status report, presumably December 15th of last year, on the status of this project, and that was done by the Agency of Education and the Agency of Digital Service jointly. Similarly, there is a shared school district financial data management system, which is supposed to be adopted by December 31st of next year, and same thing, only it's concerning data, financial data. And then, as you know, most of you know, there is the Department of Public Service, which is the telecom planning agency of the state, provides or does a 10-year telecommunications plan. It's a plan that looks out 10 years and emerging trends. The plan serves as kind of the basis for state telecom policy action. It's updated, goes through a major review every 3 years. The next report plan is due July of next year, 2024. And the Department of Public Service hired a consultant last time around to do the plan, and I believe is in the process of hiring a consultant to do the plan that's due in 2024, and this past session, you appropriated $400,000 to pay for that consultant to complete the plan. Vermont Community Broadband Board, I think you're all familiar with that entity. They issue grants, pre-construction and construction grants for broadband deployment in the state in unserved areas. I will note that they do an annual report, and this committee does receive a copy of that annual report. So that's something you can look for. And then finally, I talked about the public safety communication system and the task force that is working on developing that system. And there will be a progress report that is submitted to the legislature in January. The actual final report with the final design plan is scheduled to be completed in December of next year. So that is a very broad overview of some of the projects and initiatives that this committee may be interested in. And are there any questions?
Yeah, I have questions for Lisa, unless Lisa's going to be doing an additional presentation.
Not in this set, not today. I anticipate the review of projects will come up in subsequent sessions.
Okay, and will you be available when ADS is?
I'll be here.
Okay.
I just had a question, Maria, on the school districts, the 2 school district pieces. It says paused until July 1. Did those start back up?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can find out.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's cool.
I just was trying to track the legislation and
Nice.
yeah.
Any other questions? Lisa, did you have anything to add to any of these?
Not at this time.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to ask Kevin to step up and give us Brief review of Ledge IT.
All of the presentations and updates are located on the Joint Information Technology Oversight website.
Right, remember. Screen painting. There we go. Good morning. For the record, Kevin Moore, Director of IT for the legislature. Just a quick thank you for bringing this in. It's been a little while, so I have to give a bit of an overview. And for those of you who are new, welcome. If you were unaware, the Office of Legislative Information Technology's mission is pretty straightforward. We're a small collaborative team that we serve the General Assembly as a whole, and our oversight committee is primarily the Joint Legislative Management Committee. And this committee provides advice to my position, which we then take forward throughout planning, budgeting, and other events as necessary. We're responsible for the design, integration, support, maintenance, et cetera, of the legislative information systems as a whole. We reach out and collaborate with other folks across state government as available. And sometimes it's, I should say, it's primarily driven by economies of scale. We are certainly the smallest operation for IT in state government. And so we leverage existing state contracts as necessary, things of that nature. We're clearly and obviously a nonpartisan office. We never take a position. We serve everybody that walks in this building, regardless of who you are and who you are. And our team, again, because we're small, we require folks to wear many hats, as is pretty common in IT shops. But we do expect the individual to be a subject matter expert in their respective area of responsibility. Sometimes it's nice to put a bit of a face to name here. I apparently dropped my own photo here. So I'm there. Then you'll see the rest of our team. And this is my shameless plug saying that we are still looking for a session-only user support specialist. So if you know anybody, the application process is wide open. Please send them our way. We've gone a couple of years without them because we have some pretty high standards on how we hire folks. Some of the ongoing concerns that we have within our shop are surrounding security, right? The change in footprint of how the General Assembly operates has been pretty dramatic since COVID. We went from a largely paper-centric organization to a very spread out telecommuting style organization. And with that always comes security concerns, whether it's access to resources or access to information systems, what have you. And so one of our ongoing top concerns is secure access and resources to legislators and staff. Resiliency, natural disasters. We just went through one in Montpelier. We want to always look at what we're doing and if we can do it better. There are always ways to do things better. It takes time and money, and so it's a delicate balance in our shop. Continuity of data operations. You'll notice that it's not continuity of operations, it's of data operations. Statutory charge for continuity of operations for the legislature, General Assembly actually falls underneath the Sergeant at Arms office. So we work with the Sergeant at Arms office quite closely to ensure that our data operations play nicely with their planning as well. So, Kevin, I'd like to interrupt for just a moment. Just for everybody's awareness, the smell is giving me a headache, and other people as well. So as soon as Kevin is done, I'd like to transition.
House general, yeah, just upstairs where the fireplace is by the cafeteria, the first room on the right down that hallway.
So if anybody wants to start preparing for that, while Kevin finishes his presentation, hopefully we'll be able to pick up with Marcia up there.
Sense of urgency is noted. So along with the resiliency of the information systems, it's also the resiliency of our IT spaces. So where we work, how we work, where we store equipment, and so on and so forth. I'll touch on that a little bit more in just a second. Top priorities, not in any particular order on this slide. We can certainly get into details if you have questions. We want to take our new AV footprint that we've established since COVID response and continue to improve upon it. There are things that we really like about our existing system. We like some of the flexibility with it, but there are room for improvement. So integration within the room. I can't stand our temporary stands here. It's a delicate balance with the curatorial office. and ensuring that we land where we need to make sure it doesn't damage this beautiful building we work in. In addition, we want to make sure that we're flexible, again, with that teleworking, telecommuting type of mentality we have these days. Should there be a meeting or an event that we need to live stream off campus, we're certainly able to do so currently. We would just like to improve that capability and make sure that we can do so quickly, efficiently, and without a heavy need for IT presence. We want to continue to digitize remaining analog work processes. Again, this is in focus with that telecommuting effort. And those things are, I'll point out one, our bill drafting process is got a lot of paper folders moving around still. It's not something that we can readily change right now. We are working with legislative council and other folks to find areas to improve that, but there is certainly opportunity there. The continued security posture improvements, multi-factor authentication. I'm sure we're all pretty aware of that at this point. If you have traveled overseas as a legislator or staff member or outside the continent of the United States, frankly, you probably received a phone call from us or you've had to work with us to establish your multi-factor authentication access. That said, every single staff member, anybody with privileged access already has multi-factor authentication. But we want to continue to expand that to ensure that we have an appropriate level of security with credentials. Expand our security awareness training. We rolled out in collaboration, economies of scale again, the Center for Achievement in Public Service, CAPS, sponsored by Agency of Digital Services, the Security Mentor Cybersecurity Awareness Training. All staff take that quarterly. We do collect that information and we use that to backstop our policies and procedures for obtaining cybersecurity insurance. Some of it's kind of interesting, but it's important to check these boxes. Third-party security posture review. So it's always nice to have an outside set of eyes poking the holes in your operations. Let us know what we're doing well, okay, what we can do better, areas that perhaps we've missed. There's always opportunity for that. And internet edge firewall upgrades. So again, as we've moved away from the building, there's more demand on those edge devices. We're in a project right now to upgrade those devices to increase throughput and make sure that, again, we offer a more seamless experience regardless of where you are. We're mid-project right now on replacing an aging document management solution. This solution was originally installed, integrated into legislative operations before we had an IT department about 28 years ago. It's gone through many different flavors since then and upgrades, and it's just no longer meeting the need of the organization. So we have established a key stakeholder group for that, including all staff offices and folks that work with it deeply to ensure that we're moving in the right direction. Next generation General Assembly website. A lot of people really like our website, but it's about 8 years old right now, and it's time for a facelift, and there are areas we know can be improved. And so we've, again, established a stakeholders group internal that will begin reaching externally as well for feedback and how we can improve the current General Assembly's website. We want to expand IT training opportunities and resources for legislators. Staff have a pretty good access to that at this point, but it's on-demand training or micro-based training or just-in-time training that we want to make sure we're hitting better with legislators. We've tried a variety of different methods to provide training to individuals, and everybody has their own unique learning styles or preferences, and we want to meet everybody where they are as best we can. And then support emergency system modernization efforts. So this is talking more about the physical safety and security of the organization in the buildings and collaborating with the Capitol Police Department in their efforts to improve their technologies and capabilities. High-level overview of ongoing initiatives and projects. Networking, core switch upgrades. We have moved away from Cisco's technology to HP Enterprise. We're saving a little bit of money. We're still getting the same capacity, better support. It's worked for us pretty well. We're in the throes of a Wi-Fi forklift replacement project. So those of you who've been in the House chamber the last couple of years, you've seen that there's a bit of strain there. It's not a capacity issue. It's a distance to the access point issue. And so we're reworking some of that architecture to, again, meet the needs of the General Assembly as we currently stand. Already talked about the document management process, already talked about the web development piece, the first part anyways. We are upgrading our internal intranet services as well, and are about ready to make a switch there. These are resources that are common among staff offices. We want to make sure that they're always available, secure, and on a common architecture. We're making great use of SharePoint websites as we continue to expand as well. Committees and special committees are starting to make use of SharePoint resources now in order to expand access to either secure content or sensitive content. Training and education. So in addition to expanding the access to resources, we want to make sure that we are providing training and phishing simulations and all of this stuff to legislators. So you're going to start seeing some stuff coming through in the next few months in your email. Some of it is going to look a bit fishy. We may be reserved on how we respond to it, and that's intentional. We actually don't even message our own IT staff when we're sending out these simulations because they need that same training as well. We are almost complete in our voice over IP telephone system migration, and we anticipate about a 40% annual savings on telephony cost. And then again, I already mentioned the safety and security component with the Capitol Police.
Kevin, Senator Chittenden, did you have a question about one of those?
I'm hesitant to pause your relocation considering the smell, but I do have a question about cloud voicemail and if you're looking at all with providing legislators that capability that the Microsoft Exchange platform affords. But if you want to answer that after we move upstairs, I'd welcome any thoughts you might have on cloud voicemail considerations as a possible initiative.
So I can answer that, I think, in a sentence or two. So Senator Chittenden, thank you for the question. We are considering it. There are capabilities within the new voice over IP solution, and we hope to explore those within the next month or so. And it's not just for legislators. We see that very clear need there, but also for our staff who aren't tied to a desk anymore. They're not necessarily using that hardware device. So cautiously optimistic.
Thanks.
Asked to touch on how the flood impacted us. So we're going to start with the good news because I like the good news more than the bad news. Almost all of our services remained online without interruption. Our public-facing website was dependent at that point in time on a central route point within 133 State Street. That route point did not get flooded, but it lost power as the building lost power. Emergency power systems were failing. So as soon as our staff were safe, and as soon as we realized that there was a service outage, after everybody's at home, after everybody's made sure their families are taken care of, we then turned around and rerouted that traffic through an existing ISP that we have. Don't have the specific time it was down, but it was certainly more than a day on that public-facing approach. That was our largest impact. Legislative staff were able to telecommute without skipping a beat. There was no interruption in service for legislative staff. Operations continued as expected. We were able to offer BGS some IT support for their temporary emergency operations center, which was located in the cafeteria. Then they have since moved down to 1416 Baldwin, but we made sure that we prioritized their needs early on to make sure that they could respond effectively. A day after the flooding event occurred, it was brought to our attention that our municipal partners responsible for emergency dispatch in the central Vermont area had lost their dispatch capability and had relocated up the hill. They were running central Vermont dispatch off of 2 cell phones. Significantly impactful. And so through various means and our Capitol Police Department reaching out to us, they asked if we had the ability to assist them, knowing that we had prepared emergency operations equipment in the past. We were able to do so. We received the call, I believe, at 6:30 at night on a Tuesday, and we were up and operational in the Montpelier Police Department by 10:30 the following morning. They were working on that equipment for emergency dispatch operations up until about 3 or 4 weeks ago. They're still using some of our radio equipment as they're being repaired. And again, the General Assembly remained operational throughout the duration, and we were able to support the legislature's needs, whether that is a full session for emergency response or what have you. The bad news. So when we knew that the floodwaters were coming, we went through and tried to move all of our equipment that was located in the basement of 133 above what we understood was the 1992 flood levels. It wasn't enough. Our primary storage room for our backstock, our build space, any kind of intake of equipment was in 133's basement. And that was a space that we were provided through the capital bill a handful of years ago as we had outgrown the various cubby holes that we had found throughout the State House. We lost a significant amount of that, all of the equipment in that. Our sole dedicated training space was across the hall. And we lost all of that. It was a complete loss as well. And that's just because the basement was simply overcome with floodwater. Recovery, we immediately got to work with buildings and general services liaisons and disaster recovery professionals to haul out all of these spaces and do a piece-by-piece inventory of everything that was coming out of that location. So we could then make sure to dispose of the assets, but go through and properly annotate each line item, whether it was a serialized asset, tracked asset or not, so we could then put a comprehensive insurance claim in. The information provided or requested by the insurance company is significantly less than what we put into our efforts. But we went through and looked for replacement costs. We looked for original acquisition costs, timeline, depreciation, et cetera. Where the equipment was, what its service life was. And I think we are well prepared, well positioned to take on an insurance claim at that point. Since then, we have worked with the Sergeant at Arms office to look at our existing space that's available to the legislature to find an alternate above grade, not flood prone location where we can reestablish our IT classroom space and our storage and build locations. That work is also ongoing.
Kevin, how many more slides do you have?
Super fast. Second to last one, I believe.
Thank you.
As far as outages affecting the General Assembly's website, here's a quick chart. Here's some of our uptime metrics. So as far as percentages go that are listed on the right-hand side of the slide, you'll notice a dip in December that was surrounding a significant emergency power failure in this building. And we were able to respond once we were physically able to get here. It was weather related. And we restored that. But you see that dropped pretty significantly for the month of December. And then July, that's obviously the flood impact as well. Beyond that, internally, we're pretty close to 3 to 5 nines at any given point for internal hosting. But you'll see externally, it's not as good. And this is part of our next generation website project to provide for more resilient website hosting.
And just for data clarity, I will point out to folks watching, the scale starts at 86. It's not starting at 0.
Yes.
So this is very elongated.
It's an exaggerated dip. Thank you, Representative Chase. And then I think this is my second to last slide here. Collaboration with state IT partners. I do want to emphasize that the Agency of Digital Services, the Judiciary IT operations, and the Legislative IT operations meet routinely. We're currently on I think 2-month recurring tempo, but at no less than quarterly, we get together as IT leaders and bring in key staff to make sure that we're collaborating. We're talking about incidents that might cross our areas of jurisdiction, cybersecurity, obviously, and then any challenges that we all might be facing and how we can collectively approach them. This is not just a strategic level of communications. We also collaborate on an operational level too. So in the event that we have something to share, we share it aggressively and share it immediately to make sure that everybody is on the same page. Meeting hosts rotate, meeting locations rotate. It helps us with visibility into everybody else's operations and gives some more insight. I spoke really fast because of the smell. I apologize. Are there questions I can answer immediately?
The only thing that I was going to mention is if there was one success for JITOC, it is before JITOC was formed, and at one of our early meetings, we asked the question of when was the last time leaders of IT in each of the 3 branches had met, and they never met as a group. And now they meet regularly. That at least is one small win.
It's been quite successful, and it's spanned different leaders and the operations as well. So it's something that we all appreciate.
Perfect. With that, I'd like to ask Mike to take us off live, and we'll reconvene in 10 minutes at 10:40. And it'll be upstairs.
Room 31 upstairs.
31.
Right around the screen.